Hi, I'm Jenny Wise, and this is the Mediatox Podcast. We all know we live in a world saturated with media and noise and constant stimulation. The Mediatox Podcast is a quiet answer to the overwhelm. In these conversations, we explore how media is shaping our minds, our relationships, our attention, and how we can reclaim our inner world in the age of digital chaos. Today, I'm thrilled to interview a dear friend, my co-author, and a digital strategist, Bob Hutchins. Bob is full of interesting insights. He's an incredible communicator. You guys are just going to even love the sound of his voice. He's done so many digital marketing efforts, and in that process, he learned basically how easy it was to manipulate people in virtual spaces. And that led us to writing our book together. A couple of things stand out to me that I'd really love for you to pay attention to in this episode. The first one is Bob's favorite quote, "The medium is the message." You'll hear the way that he embodies and expands on this idea, and that the way we experience media is the message itself. That is really helps to bend your mind a little bit. Secondly, we unpack one of my favorite things I've ever learned from Bob, which is a Media Tetrad. It's a framework that helps us understand that any type of new technology brings four things into our world. It enhances something, it makes something obsolete, it retrieves something, and it reverses something. Once you see this idea, you'll start to see it everywhere. I really appreciate this thoughtful conversation that I hope will leave you thinking differently and maybe a bit more, give yourself more agency to learn how to use the tools that are falling into all of our laps as humanely as possible. Thanks for listening. Hey, Bob. How you doing?
Jenny. It's good to see you again.
So good to see you. I was telling the guys, I'm so excited about this podcast because I haven't caught up with Bob in a while. So This is actually
it's been a little while.
My questions and our conversation.
We do pass each other at coffee shops from time to time.
Yeah, we get one thing.
Yeah.
One thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was doing some brainstorming and I've been reading your Substack, so that's been fun to stay sort of up to date on your thought processes and how you're interacting with AI. How about you start by introducing yourself so that people know kind of what you do and what you're about?
Okay. Well, my name is Bob Hutchins. I guess we'll talk about our history and co-authoring together at some point here in the podcast. But my career background is in technology. I ran an agency for 17 years. So I've been involved in digital marketing and branding and writing and communication from a client service perspective for many years. I kind of shifted at the end of 2017 and decided that I did not want to do that anymore. And that was precipitated by lots of different life events. I really just got burned out on many different levels when it comes to the agency life, and tried to decide for the next year what I wanted to do. One of the things that I always appreciated, and this is a long way around talking about, you asked me who I am and what I do.
Who are you? That's a big question.
Yeah. So I love the tech piece. I loved the integration of human meets technology. I love the sociological piece of it, the psychological piece of that. And that's what I really gravitated toward most of my career, was helping my clients, businesses, organizations, etc., really speak to human beings in different types of modes. And so my mode was digital means. So I started early on in the internet, late 90s, early 2000s, helping them talk to people via email, engage with people, maybe music labels, how to engage with fans on the different platforms. This was pre-social media. And then as social media came along, we explored and helped clients communicate that way. And through it all, the thin line that I really enjoyed and felt like gave me an advantage when I was offering services over competitors that were coming along at the time, was that I didn't get caught up in the technology as much as I always went back to the core principles of human psychology and human behavioral sciences. Because humans are humans, we haven't changed a lot in the last 100,000 years for the most part. We've got more cool tech. We talk a little bit differently, but our emotions, our ways of responding, whether it's responding to the fear of an animal that's going to eat us or not having enough money to pay our bills, it's the same type of emotional response, right? So our brains haven't really changed. And so that I always found that fascinating, how these technologies and these sciences kind of come and go, but we pretty much remain the same. And if you understand that, and I know you're a psychologist and a therapist, you can really navigate these things a little bit better versus getting caught up in whatever that shiny object is. Because social media platforms are going to come and go. What's on the internet is going to change. Whether it's a flip phone or whether it's a smartphone, it's going to evolve and change, but we don't change. And so understanding our brains and the way we behave is really core to whatever you're looking at or trying to accomplish. So I know that's important to you as well. So I decided to go deeper into that. And for the last, I would say, 5 to 7 years, I've been really focusing on artificial intelligence. I've been focusing on as how that affects us as humans, those media environments. And so I do a lot of AI advising, AI literacy training for organizations, for educational institutions, for businesses. My PhD that I'm hopefully going to be done with at the end of this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Will be around the whole creativity in AI and meaning making. And what that really means for us as humans. I
love that. I think it's going to be one of our biggest conversations.
Yeah.
So I have been writing in my Substack about this book of my grandfather's I found called Practical Psychology. It was his psychology textbook published in 1944, 46. I can't remember. The 1940s.
So it was your grandfather.
It was my grandfather's.
Did you know he had written a book about something?
No, he didn't write it. It was his. It was his textbook.
It
was his textbook. And when I first picked it up, I thought I was going to find a lot of antiquated. We have so much more research now. Oh, we know so much more. But two things have stood out to me. One is the level of thinking a person who wrote a textbook had to do back then. The way that their mind worked. It was like math without a calculator. It's impressive, really, really impressive writing. And the way that they had to go deeper and deeper into their own thought process to write. And also that it was sort of the beginning of man plus machine and what this life looks like. And so it's really neat because it has some pictures of an actual man with a machine trying to figure out how to work with this. And this author... Ferrier, I think is his last name. He was fascinated by how this was going to affect the human experience. And so seeing those pictures, those black and white pictures of now that's us in our little laptop in our phone. But honestly, in a lot of ways, it's more relevant. That psychology textbook is more relevant now than it has been in the years, between my grandpa's freshman year in college and now.
Yeah, that's really neat. I find that to be true, too. I'm sure we'll talk about this in a few minutes, but I always go back to the old writings and philosophers and psychologists and sociologists of the past 100 years because I find what they were talking about has just as much, if not more, relevance today because they were looking forward to things and how we might be affected. And I think when we start to adopt new technologies, we always forget the concerns. The cycle is always fear, adoption, forgetting. Fear, adoption, forgetting. It's like we fear it, we talk about it, we analyze it, then the fear goes away, we just adopt it, it becomes part of our normal lives. Then we just forget that it's even here and we go on to the next.
Well, my example of that and a metaphor I use I actually haven't used recently, which is exactly to your point, was how long it took from the time we started working in factories. It took 50 years before the word exercise showed up in our vocabulary. So it took 50 years of us not moving our bodies on a daily basis in our work to realize that this significant component of our health was missing now that we were just sitting in factories or at desks, right? And that's a long time. 50 years is a long time to realize we're missing something. We got this new thing, but we didn't know what we were missing. And now that's not only just a normal part of our vocabulary, it's a normal part of our days. Like, you have to be getting exercise.
And part of that in the Industrial Revolution was that people didn't have the time. And so when you were working in factories or assembly lines, it was very long, grueling days. And even your children were working in the factories.
Yeah.
So it wasn't 40, 50 years later till the 8-hour workday. And I think it was like 1930s that the 8-hour workday came as a law.
Really?
So if you were to go back and say the turn of the century and say, hey, are you exercising? They would just look at you like, what? When do I have time?
There was no
15, 18-hour days.
Wow. I didn't realize it was that long.
Then you go.
I knew they were grueling. Obviously that's how we had all of our human resources, and this is how we make sure.
Yeah.
And then child labor laws, which again, that's like a really fascinating lens to look at. We could have never imagined that children would all have a phone and all have access to the internet. And so we're just in such another level of that.
We're entering into I think we had the internet, we had smartphones, and now we're entering into a very similar phase as that Industrial Revolution, where we're right in the 20s and 30s, where we're looking at, maybe this is not a good idea and we need to put some parameters around it. Maybe it's not a good idea that 6-year-olds with tiny hands work in these factories where they, use them. Maybe it's not a good idea that people work 15 hours a day. So now we're kind of at that stage.
I mean, it's almost apples to apples, because now we're talking about 15 to 18 hours of screen time a day.
That's right.
Or what is the development, the child's brain getting exposed to the level of stimulus, like that their brains can't handle it. Like we're now seeing what I call the iPad babies are now in school, and the interventions that are having to be done to teach fine motor skills later on in life are significant, because it's like the language acquisition. You don't, there's these times your brain is really ready to do it, and there's times it's not. It's that window has closed, and that is, wow.
Yeah.
It's pretty precise.
I think probably 30 years from now, someone's going to be sitting on a podcast, whatever that looks like then, and said, remember when there was no regulations around it, right? And there will be something that's the equivalent of exercise then, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And someone's going to go, well, they were on their screens 18 hours a day. Of course they didn't have time to do X, or they didn't think about it, or it wasn't a thing.
Right. That one of the last interviews I did, that's what I was saying, is that a lot of the things that keep us from being depressed and anxious, and that heal depression and anxiety, are things that are not in our lives. So if you're driving in your car, especially in the kids in the backseat of the car just looking out the window, what that does to heal your brain and process emotions, that who knew that was valuable?
Yeah, the value of being bored.
Right.
And our kids
and staring
can't take that.
Staring. It's torture. It's torture. Although we were talking right before the interview, both of our kids have had concussions. Fascinating part of someone having a concussion is one of the only things doctors will say is they can't look at screens.
Right.
And then you're like, oh my God, what do we do if we can't look at screens?
Yeah, that's an interesting phenomenon, is that if a concussed brain doesn't need screen time and it aggravates us, at what point then is it aggravating a normal brain? Is it quantity of time? Is it
Right.
Distance, quality, type of screen. I know my daughter, who's been through concussion more than once, she will turn her screen to like that ugly yellow or gray, or I don't know what it's called. And I if I'm with her, I look, I'm like, hey, what's wrong with your screen? Do you need a new phone? She's like, no, I intentionally do this
because my brain likes it better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's been very interesting to me too. Another one of my friends who had a concussion, it was like, it's almost like your brain's allergic to screens. But she said it loved to color. It was like one of the only things her brain could tolerate, an activity that her brain was like, yes,
That's
I
fascinating.
like coloring.
With crayons?
I don't know, maybe markers. Okay, so in my little brainstorming before even though we could talk about this in 1,000 directions, the 3 areas I really wanted to cover with you today was our emotional and like the therapeutic experience with AI. Some sort of giving us some little tiny lessons on productivity and AI hacks that you're out there sharing with the rest of the world. And then, of course, our favorite conversation is, what does that do for our digital and mental hygiene?
Yeah.
Which now's a good time to say, Bob and I wrote a book together. And it's Our Digital Soul. And we wrote it together we started writing it about 4 years ago.
Was it end of 23, middle of 23 that it came out?
Yeah, it came out. And then, and just as we were writing it, and I think Bob and I are both really sensitive to this in our work now, the ever shifting landscape that's changing underneath our feet as we walk. We're always trying to find sort of broader themes because what we're talking about is going to change tomorrow, right? And that is, I think, probably what keeps both of us interested in this work. We're never going to become experts in it. We're just sort of explorers and almost like experimenters with this and like informing the people behind us. Hey, this is what we see right now.
Of our skill sets, I guess, and wiring. I always kind of half joke about it. It's my blessing and my curse is because I think growing up in a household where my dad was in tech, he worked for the government. And so we were always the family who had computers and calculators, like all the gadgets. He's a gadget guy, still is at 92, believe it or not.
Aww.
But so I think I inherited that. The problem, though, is that you're always so far ahead. And I don't say this in a like egotistical way. I'm just saying I'm able to see what's coming down the road. And I'm like, hey, guys, come on, do this. And it served me really well in my agency because I could offer those things to my clients. But many times you're so far ahead that people aren't quite there yet, and then you're on to the next thing.
Yes.
For instance, our book, if you've read Jonathan Haidt's book, what's it called? You know which one I'm talking about?
Yes.
With the kids on the front and the bouncy balls or something. Is it Anxious Generation?
Yes.
Anxious Generation. That was very similar to our book 2 years prior. And I think people are finally ready to hear a lot of the things that maybe we were pushing on that people were like, I don't know about that.
Everybody asks me when they find out what I do. They're like, oh, have you read The Anxious Generation? And I'm like, I read all the same research he wrote about The Anxious Generation.
Yeah. So if you like The Anxious Generation, go get Our Digital Soul on Amazon. You might like that as well.
Yeah. And what I tell people is that we definitely wrote it for a professional, someone from a psychological perspective. And if you, there's all the lingo, it's even made it into, I think, a band. There's a band called The Attachment Theory.
That's good.
And it's so like all those ideas that we now understand and being able to see how your technology is feeding into that exact psychological disorder, I think is so important.
For sure.
But, okay, there was something you said about, well, let's just dive into your, I know what I was going to say. That's how I was with social media, and I bet you were too. I was on social media before anyone was on social media. I knew 3 people on any platform. I was absolutely obsessed with it. I got my kids on it super early. I was like, you guys are going to have to know how to do this. I loved it. Like my boundaries with it came much more from how much I loved it, not from toxic abuse or whatever. And then I was already over it by the time a lot of my friends were like just getting on, and it was like the big joke. Like I remember a couple of people, I'd be like, I posted it on Facebook. I don't want to tell the story over and over again. And everybody being like, you posted it on Facebook, like for everyone, and you haven't told us about it. Like we've got to go online to read about you.
Exactly.
But I feel that way about AI right now. I am, and I can only, you're ahead of me, so I can only, I'm curious where you are in the infatuation phase.
Well, the thing about AI, I think is, I really believe, and I'm going to sound like a hype person here, but I really believe that it is going to be as influential, if not more, than the internet. That's what I saw in the internet. It's what I'm seeing now with artificial intelligence. And what people don't understand sometimes is what we're working with now, and most people talk about ChatGPT or Claude or Copilot or any of these tools, Gemini. This is a generative AI. AI, artificial intelligence, has been around for 75 years. So machine learning, different forms of AI, computer vision. And I've been using it in my work for 20 years because a lot of the marketing and online tools that I would use were forms of machine learning. And machine learning and AI we use every day. If you talk to Alexa, if you talk to your home assistant, that's a form of machine learning. If you use Waze or Google Map, that's a form of AI and machine learning. So it's all around us. Our Roomba, our vacuum is a form, a rudimentary machine learning. It learns your space, and it goes and it bumps into something, then it says, oh, I'm not going to go that way. I'm going to go around it. That is a simple form of artificial AI, sophisticated to people many years ago. But so it's all around us. But what we have right now is what's called generative AI. So it's a subset of a big umbrella of AI. It's a very thin subset, but it's very influential, as we've seen. And so when ChatGPT 3 came out at the end of 2023, that's where everything kind of broke loose and what everyone's playing with now, and are mystified and excited about this tool that really is what I tell my clients is you've got to reframe this whole movement, because it's more of a cultural shift than it is a technological shift. And so I can go to Microsoft Word, I can go to Excel, any tool you use, and I can teach you some universal ways and commands that it works all the time, right? Mm-hmm. These are commands you use. This is where you drop down. You use, if you want to know how to do a formula on Excel, it's universal no matter where you go in the world. It always works the same. With generative AI, that's not the case. It's how you
engage with it.
It's how you describe it. And oh, by the way, every single time, even if you put in the same command, it will give you something a little different.
Right.
And my AI gives something different. So it's a unique thing. So the way I tell people to think about it is you have to think about it as a sophisticated intern that you have that's there to...
Who wants to be the best intern ever.
That wants to be the best intern ever. But I don't care how smart an intern is, you've got to always check their work because they're young. They don't know your way of doing things. They don't know your processes. And the last thing you would do is take an intern's work and give it to your boss or to your client without checking it. And so that's a very simplistic way of how you need to treat this new technology.
And actually, you can imagine, like I've seen movies where people do that. I'm thinking, oh shoot, what was the one with where she steals her secretary's idea? Working Girl.
Oh yes.
And then you can't execute the idea. Like you can get yourself in trouble if you do that, because you're like, oh, I don't really know why we did that or what that was for.
Yeah. Well, there's a case, I think it was a year or so ago, and there's been many others, of a lawyer who argued a case in front of a judge was going to win the case, the judge went back to his chambers and said, I'm going to double check all this case law that he cited. And make a long story short, it was all fictional. And he had used ChatGPT to argue the case. Well, it was very persuasive and it sounded right.
Right.
And actually he was going to win the case until the judge said, whoa, 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 whoa.
Amazing.
This is all made up. And that's what we call hallucinations. And it's getting a lot better. It's not as bad as it was. But if you think of generative AI as a glorified autocomplete, that's what it is mostly.
Yeah.
It's much more sophisticated than that, but it's just trying to complete the next thing. And if it can't find it in the real world, it will make it up to
So
say, you want this, I'm going to go find it. I can't find it. I will try to please you and give you what fits in the next slot.
So my son Brandon is my assistant right now, and we've been working on creating media trauma training videos for therapists. And so I gave him the first lesson that I'd written and had all of our old research, and I said, find any new research that, anything that's more recent. So he went in, found all this research using, I don't know, Grok or ChatGPT, all this new research. We get all the research, we're making the slideshows or whatever, and I don't know what made him go back and ask. Well, he's a journalist, which was my saving grace, that he wasn't just my assistant, but he's a journalist. Goes back in and he said, is this research real? And they're like, we think it will be. Like, this is what we are predicting the research will be. And he was like, no. I need to find real research. And that was just such I don't even know what, and you talk about this a lot in your work of, you have to make it accountable. And for us to be able to think that way.
That's part of the cultural change.
Exactly. We have just been taking information in.
We've been trained for the past 2 decades to think in broken, very minimal ways because of keywords. So when the past 15 years, if I was out and about and my wife and I wanted to go to dinner, how many times have you done this? Best Thai restaurant near me, 5 stars, pad Thai, whatever. That's how we engage. It's all broken keywords, and because Google was based on a keyword results.
That's very caveman.
It's very caveman. And to your point, so if you take a few steps back, we've been all new tech. We'll talk about some frameworks here in a few minutes that I think are important. One of the truths or laws of media is that all media, it'll do several things, but one thing is it reverses us back and it pulls back a previous obsolete. I would argue that as sophisticated as the internet and search and all these things have been for us, in some areas, if we're willing to take a few steps back, our questioning, our research, our ways we engage, our sentence structures, our curiosity was pulled back all the way to the telegraph days. Because if you read telegraphs,
wow,
it's broken. It's keywords.
Yep.
You would, during the wartime is when they developed it, in the early mid 1800s is when it first came around, and it was always, going, ship on its way, Pacific, be there, 10 o'clock. It's just very broken. And so
it's how Three Amigos happened.
Exactly. So all of a sudden, this generative AI comes along and it says, just ask me anything you want, but the quality of the asking is the quality of the output.
So, okay, one of my first romantic experiences with ChatGPT was I had this ridiculous weekend, an absolutely ridiculous weekend that was so packed, and I had to have so many details in place for this, maybe 48-hour period. So I sat down and I entered in This is my schedule. These are the locations, the time zones I'm supposed to be at, the things I have to be prepared for. What do I need to do? And it wrote me out a schedule for like not just that time, but like the days leading up that I needed to get done. And I read through this schedule and I was like, I don't want to live like that. This isn't just about me getting all these things done. I actually want to enjoy the process. And then it was like, oh, okay. Well, if you want to enjoy the process, then you need to. Anyway, as me and Chad are going through my weekend, I realize I canceled a shift of work that I was going to do. I ended up booking a hotel room for less than $100. That meant I could have a full night's sleep. Like all of a sudden, my whole weekend changed around the quality of the weekend, not just the productivity of the weekend. And it got so far into I was like, okay, but I really care about what I'm eating. Okay, well, pack these things for the road. These are the foods that you can pack on the road. And then it gave me a playlist and an audiobook to listen to that was in the spirit of what I wanted my weekend
There's your
to be.
sophisticated
And
intern.
I was having so much fun. But it was like you've always said, which this is probably going to be the title of this podcast, the whole idea of the digital world being a mirror of us, right? That's why we called our book Our Digital Soul. Like we are putting this in, it's reflecting back to us what we've put in. And it was it made me slow down and realize I was organizing my life in such a way that wasn't a life I wanted to live.
Right.
And that's fun. Like just the thought of using it for that kind of, it was almost the productivity shifted over into like mental health, which is me, right? I put it in there. It gave it back to me.
Yeah, I firmly believe that there is artificial intelligence will bring with it a lot of different things. I understand that there's fear, and rightfully so. But I also believe to your story, and I've heard it over and over and over again for the last 3 years. People, after I teach them, go through courses, or just colleagues saying, I literally have saved X amount of hours each week. I was giving an AI literacy course to educators up in Connecticut a couple weeks ago, and there was a vice principal there who had been using it for a while. And in one of the breaks, I asked him, I said, I'm just curious, how much time has it saved you? And he's like, 6 hours a week easily. So he got a full day of his week back. And I asked him, and here's the catch.
Yeah.
Because the catch is, what do you do with the time?
Right.
And I've yet to find, and I know they're out there, I've yet to find anyone goes, yeah, that's the thing. I just do more stuff that exhausts me. I literally I've heard over and over, he said, I can spend more time with my teachers. I can have more time with one-on-ones. I can spend more time with the students. That's what I hear over and over again, is like when I get these
hours back almost.
Informational, rote things that as humans we're not really good at and machines are better at, then it allows us as humans to get back those things that we are better at.
Well, that has been my feeling, before ChatGPT or AI, or I don't know. What do you call it? Do you just call it generative AI?
I just call it AI. I call it generative AI,
but that's everybody will be just talking about AI. Mm-hmm. I feel like leading up to it, our technology and our media had created such a massive, even people just navigating the different apps and accounts and, all the various things that so quickly can be made problems for humans to solve that humans weren't made to solve. Like we were overwhelmed by this technology world that only technology can solve the problems that technology created. That's kind of the feeling I'm having right now. So my significant 6-hour save is I had a hospital bill that was not legitimate. And I knew, like I had enough information to know I should not have to pay this bill. It's going to go to creditor. You know, like all of those problems in life, the problem of the day, as my 4-year-old would say. But I didn't have the energy or resources to know how to dispute it. You know, it's like I had the pieces, I had the keywords basically. And I was like, I don't think this is a legitimate, I should have to pay this bill. I mean, it was not seconds, because I had to be thoughtful about what I was putting in there. But say in 30 minutes, I was able to do with AI what was so overwhelming to me. I don't know how many hours it would have taken to write up my dispute letter, to get to see what my rights were, to see what the laws were, whatever. And it was like, I just did it. I just did it. Oh my goodness. Like, it was just a lifesaver.
Yeah, I think when people have those moments, it's the aha moment. And getting back to what we were talking about as far as asking really good questions, I hear people often say to me, well, I tried ChatGPT or I tried Copilot and I didn't like it. I'm like, oh, really? Why? Well, I told it to do X, Y, Z, and what it gave me was not very good. And I said, well, what did you say specifically? So for instance, let's say you're a teacher. I told it to write a lesson plan about the water cycle. I said, you said it just like that. I said, well, no wonder. I said, you have to give it a persona. You have to say, you are a teacher of 4th graders and you're writing a lesson plan about the water cycle. Include these things. Make it X amount long. You know, you can go on and on. So we're learning, when you use AI, you learn really fast that it's training you to ask deeper, specific, nuanced questions about things. And as you do that, it's amazing, this kind of like Socratic method that you're forced into. It's painful at first, but then you realize, oh, I'm actually learning.
Yeah. And I'm also the creator. Like, it's been so fun to me as I've been working on like brainstorming with it. It will, like one of the things, it's always when I'm working on Mediatox things, it will always put in the phrase like, not that technology can't be a good thing, or it does these like little disclaimers, and I'll be like, I don't want it to say that. You know, like I realize what I want and don't want to say based on the feedback that it gives to me. And I'm like, no, more like this, more like that. And then I'll end up at the end thinking, I just did all this with ChatGPT, and that's all like its ideas got rejected in my brainstorming, but I wouldn't have known to have those objections or corrections if it hadn't put out something different.
I'm going out on a limb here, but you can correct me or agree or disagree. It's an amazing tool for metacognition.
Well, that's what I was really excited to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah, so it really is. And isn't that, again, I'm going out on a limb here, isn't that the goal of therapy? Is to get the person to finally step out of themselves and see their own thoughts, observe them.
So tell a little bit of your story that you wrote about on your Substack.
Okay. About the one where I started to see that and hear that from other people and see it in myself. Yeah, I've been realizing the past. There's this thing happening the past 6 months where I am getting calls from friends. I'm reading things, and I'm experiencing myself. And it's kind of like this little secret thing that people don't know if they want to talk about it or not. But they're having this, and it's not, I mean, it can become very unhealthy, but for most people, it's not unhealthy. It's just a tool for self-awareness to say, what is it about me that I may not realize about myself? Those type of questions you can ask because it has digested so much of your questioning, your curiosities, the thing like, for instance, the way that you say, no, not like this, more like this. That says more about you as a person than you realize. It's our words.
Right.
Like if I use a certain word a lot, and if you go down those rabbit holes, it will say, well, Bob, you tend to use this phrase a lot. Maybe you're maybe you care more about what people think about you in this area, or you're always wanting to push things in this direction. This is important to you. Those are the type of discussions that you're having more and more. But I have friends all the time that say, yeah, I'll put it on voice mode while I'm driving, and I will have it prepare for a meeting with me. And so it could just be as simple as, hey, I'm having a meeting. I'm going to go meet with Jenny Black. We're going to do a podcast about XYZ. Help me prepare for this. What are some things that I might want to talk about based on my interest and your memory of me and the things that I've written about? Because I can't remember every article that I've ever written the past 5 years. But it does. It's in there in some degree.
Yeah.
Because now that it has access to the web, I may not have used it to write, but it can go find it on the web. I can say, go to my Substack, go to my LinkedIn articles, read them all.
Right.
I'm having this meeting about this. Give me some suggestions around it.
It's so fun. My new thing I've been loving to do, if I'm reading like a self-help book, have you heard of The Big Leap? Have you read that?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So what I did is I said, hey, I'm reading The Big Leap right now. Using the framework of The Big Leap, here's a situation I'm dealing with right now. How does it match? So one of the things The Big Leap talks about, which back into the little world of brain and concussions, is that your brain puts up a fight when you get to the upper limit of what you have done up until that moment. So you get to your edge and you will sabotage in some way, like the person who's finally in a happy relationship and they pick a fight. You know, it's like, I've met my upper limit. I don't know how to function at this next higher level. So my ability to reflect on that is probably more than the average person's, but it's still so limited. I'll still miss like, oh, no, I'm just upset about that. I'll be like, no, that was your upper limit problem. You know, it can give you that that reflection back.
Yeah.
So.
And I think the downside of this is one thing that I've been thinking a lot about lately is now that ChatGPT has this memory option that it does keep in memory unless you turn it off or erase it, everything that you've said and talked about. And that's a great thing when it comes to learning your tone, style, how you say things, what you're interested in, what you digest, books you read. You want to keep that external brain intact to some degree. The problem, though, is that you begin to get in a loop of your own bias if you're not careful. So when you do ask it, it will start to be trained after 6 months, a year, 2 years on all of your fears and anxieties and interests. And so when I have to do a double take when it's popular right now on TikTok or Instagram, these little videos that said, I asked AI about this and this is what it said. Can you believe it? And I have to stop and go, yeah, that's because it's mirroring back. So it might be something like, I'm going to take over the world, or here's how you you do something bad, or, and it could be innocent. But the downside of all this is you have to be aware, like meta cognition, to go, okay, I'm observing myself and my thoughts, but those thoughts are still influenced by my own personalities and fears. So I've got to use it in ways that are going to challenge and say things like, give me the other side of this argument. What would someone who disagrees with this think about it? What's another way of looking at it? Like, these are all ways that you have to keep yourself in check.
So what you're saying is, in the same ways we talk about the echo chamber in social media, or even in popular media, right? Mm-hmm. Even in mass media, you get in these, what they call their little silos and the echo chambers. You're saying AI could now put us in that with ourselves, like even a hyper personalized version of my.
And it's more subtle and it's more deceptive because you think, well, I'm asking artificial intelligence that knows the world's information, but it's going to be filtered through your own experience and memory, because it's going to talk and it's going to use words and interest and books I've read. And
Right.
have you ever caught it going, like the author of The Big Leap might say, it just all of a sudden pops up out of the blue.
No, I haven't done that yet.
Yeah, well, it will do that to you eventually. If you're like
going
kind
back
of
to
something
it, right,
that's
right.
around it,
Which again, we've been so programmed with. I feel like I'm hearing a lot more from people about this hyper specification of ads, like to conversations, dreams, hopes about things of like, wait, I don't think I've ever researched that. How does whatever know I'm considering moving to Texas, whatever it is. And so we've become conditioned to things reflecting us back our existing thoughts, ideas, and what we're wanting. So it would be easy to miss.
It would be easy to miss. There's ways you can erase the memory inside of ChatGPT, for instance. You can use another one like Claude, or there's other generative AI tools that don't keep memory like that. It's fresh every time. There's a mode inside of ChatGPT. I forget the name of it. It's like private mode or offline mode or something, where it's not using your memory. It's just using like the old ChatGPT. So there's ways to check yourself. But that's
funny.
just something to think about.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because my enjoyment of I don't really know the difference of what I feel like I've been doing some very logistical things recently, but my enjoyment of ChatGPT was higher when I didn't log in.
Oh, okay.
It was just whatever.
That's great.
In the server. And now that I've logged in, because I had so many like files that I needed to reference back, I'm not enjoying it as much. And I don't know why that is.
Yeah. Probably because it's trying to give you more of what you want,
right,
and based
right.
on your own stuff.
Right. So interesting. Okay, so I feel like my enjoyment of it is such a high level. One, because it's new, but two, because I'm not on screens a lot. Like, I don't always have my laptop or my phone available. So I still have a tremendous amount of time where that's not accessible to me. And then when I do have it, I know what I'm there for. I know what I'll be thinking during the day. Okay, I've got to work on this thing with ChatGPT. But I'm curious what my own addiction levels to it would be if I was already in that mode of going to my phone for things. What are you hearing about people's dependency on it that is either concerning or is concerning? Like, besides just the silo, is there another part of it? I would be addicted to it.
Yeah. I think it's I would say it like this. I always try to use frameworks to understand and read through and make sense of these things. And I think it's really helpful to not view this through a binary lens, like AI good, AI bad. I don't think any of us consciously do that, but I think subconsciously it's easy to put something in a category, in a bin. And as you know as well as I do, many things can be true at the same time. And I think as we wrote our previous book and technology about screen time, as I approach AI and I'm constantly researching and looking at the studies, there are several things to be concerned about, but it is a different thing. The biggest things I'm concerned about is bias, right? It's like, who's creating and making training these algorithms? Up until this time, it's young to middle-aged white men in Silicon Valley who are probably upper middle class on the West Coast, right? Like,
right.
Let's be honest. That's who built many of these. Now you're getting really good models from China. You're getting some things from France, but at the end of the day, it's Americans on the West Coast. Google, DeepMind, OpenAI, even Claude, Anthropic. It's a little bit safer, but it's all there. So how does that play out in other countries? How does it play out in people in different socioeconomic, right? How do they prioritize these things when it comes to, for instance, a bank using some sort of AI tool to say this person is creditworthy or not. Okay, well, who built that algorithm? Based on what data from what location? All of these things. So those are things that concern me.
Well, real quick, this is one of my favorite quotes of yours. That is the McLuhan quote, is the medium is the message.
Right.
And I think he did write a book called that, didn't he? That is one of those ideas that needs to be a headline for pretty much every single thing we read or do, right? That there is no such thing anymore in the digital spaces in which you and I are just having our unmediated experience. Podcasts come about as close to that as anything can come, right?
That's right.
That you don't have the medium itself manipulating the person who's experiencing it.
Right. There's a language and an environment that every medium creates that you abide by its rules, right? So
To become aware of that is, in my opinion, the greatest thing we could become aware of from this point on. Like if we could teach that, if we could embody that, we may have things to fear, but we'll also see them and we'll know how to make adjustments.
Yeah. Well, let me offer a framework for that exactly that I find very helpful, because your question was addiction and AI. McLuhan also had a framework. He called it his tetrad of media effects. And tetrad is basically 4 things that are together. I don't know why it's tetrad, but it's 4, not 3, you would think, but it's 4. And he says that there was a law around all technology and media, meaning this always happens, and you can test it. It's kind of fun to plug things into it. And these media, all new technology, you can say technology, media. He calls media, he interchanged media for technology, because all new technology creates some sort of media environment, whatever it may be. And so he says it does 4 things. The first thing it does is it enhances. All new technology, all media enhances something. So let's plug in the automobile, for instance. The automobile enhanced our ability to travel. It enhanced human transportation. It enhanced our legs. It was an extension, right? We had to walk or take a horse, and now all of a sudden we can go miles and back in the same day. So all new technology enhances something. It's created to enhance something. The wheel enhanced the ability to roll and carry big things, right? Writing and pencils and paper enhanced our ability to communicate and memorize things, right? So the automobile, it enhanced that. So, and then the next thing it does, so enhances, the next thing it does of the 4, second one is it makes obsolete. It makes something obsolete. So automobile, what did it make obsolete? Walking everywhere, horse and buggy. It makes those things obsolete. The third thing it does is it reverses back into before this there's 2 R's. Let's put that one last. The third thing it does is it retrieves. So it enhances, it makes obsolete, and then it retrieves. It retrieves a previous technology that was formerly made obsolete.
Which is what you were saying about the communication.
Yeah. It retrieved a mindset, the internet and Google search retrieved a way of communicating that the telegraph that was made obsolete at one time.
Right.
You could say the same thing about digital music. All of a sudden, vinyl records are more popular than ever. Right. It retrieved that back because people are like, I don't like just ones and zeros on a little machine. I want to touch. I want to hold it. I want to play the needle on the record. Right. And our kids are going, Dad, look at this cool stuff inside the album covers.
Right.
And what does the automobile retrieve? It pulls back something that was obsolete. The wanderer, the explorer, the frontiersman, the cowboy now is behind a wheel, right?
Yeah,
We can go family gatherings, right? We're
Yeah.
pulling back those things that we weren't able to do. And then the last one is important because this plays into what your question is. Reverses back into something, right? It reverses it, flips it the other way in negative ways specifically. So if we look at the automobile, what does it reverse back into? Traffic jams, pollution, accidents, people being killed, being run over.
Injuries, yeah.
So if you take that framework, enhances, makes obsolete, retrieves, and reverses back into, and plug in anything into it, from Netflix to the internet to social media, to me, that's a helpful way to think about where does AI fit? What is the good, the bad? What is the addiction? What's the pros? So that you can look at it somewhat objectively instead of in a kind of a binary way of going, do I like it? Do I not like it? Is it good? Is it bad? But to actually say, well, it does all four of these things in different ways.
Which is the second tenet on mental hygiene that I'm researching right now is adapting to unchangeable things, and just that Darwin quote, adapt or die, that it doesn't really matter. It exists, whatever it is, right? Whatever the thing is, it now exists, and it will always have things that are good that come from it, things that are harmful that come from it, things that we need to now adapt differently to. Like, that's just the human. That is what it means to be alive, a human, and evolving, even if it wasn't technology, right?
Yeah.
Although the word technology has kind of gotten hijacked by
So I put
plugs.
I put that 4 framework out into a very quick video that I released on TikTok about a year and a half ago. And I mentioned those 4 things briefly, and then I said, what will happen? What will AI retrieve and bring back? And it was fascinating. I got hundreds of responses, and it was really fascinating when people were like, oh, I've never thought about that. But it may bring back a lot of lost art forms in kind of Renaissance era, by people discovering those things that they never discovered, right? As you ask these deeper questions. But also in the interest of, if it pulls it back and reverses it into like flat bad writing, which we know it's starting to happen.
Of course.
Then all of a sudden you're going to get these environments that are human-only environments, right?
Right.
So you'll get, I'd say in the coming years, you'll have nightclubs that are human-only created music.
Exactly.
You'll get books that have a little notice on it. It'll say human written versus AI written. And you have your choice. You can choose because it's going to get really good. AI is going to be good.
Right. I know it's happened already. I was really enjoying this series of books from this one author. It was really fun. I'm a sucker for any sort of like time travel switching.
Alternative history.
Yeah, I love that kind of stuff. So read this author's first 2 books, and they are just my fun. This was one of the books I listened to on my little road trip. And so I'm like excited to listen to her 3rd book. I'm listening to the 3rd book. I'm like, something's wrong with this. Like, something's wrong with this book. I'm like, AI wrote this book. It's not, of course, I don't really know that, but I had a completely different, it felt formulaic. It felt like it had studied. I feel this way on Netflix all the time when you watch certain Netflix shows and you're like, there weren't real writers on this show. They just followed people like this, and then they like this character and they don't like this character. So I'm sure it's happened already, and that's part of why we don't like certain
could be.
pieces of art.
I think it's going to get better, though, because generative AI, we didn't really talk about this. It's not just text. Generative AI can generate music. It can generate images. It can generate videos. So that's getting better and better and better every single week. But it also, it gives people that creative ability, right? Like
right.
The kid,
from your idea to a reality.
The kid in Kansas who dreamed of writing music, literally AI will be his Lennon and he's the McCartney, because he couldn't write good lyrics or he couldn't write good choruses, but he was a great guitar player, he could write licks, and he would never get anywhere to all of a sudden he's going to go somewhere in his life, right? Because he has that tool, that creative brain that can fill in that part that he might be missing. And that's a beautiful thing. And I hear all the time in schools, well, kids are cheating. Kids are getting through school by cheating. Yes, that's a bad thing.
And school has to change.
It says so much more about the education system than it does the AI.
Yeah, it has, talk about adapt or die.
Right.
So our church has like this opening video that they do every week now, like to open the service. Mm-hmm. And I'll always lean over and be like, find family running through a field. It's just the cheesiest, like, this isn't meaningful at all.
It's probably AI.
You can put the people that you can imagine them like, now show them praying together.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Now switch to an interracial family.
That's right. A little more diversity.
Okay, let's see how, I did when you first, I'm so happy you reminded me of what's the triangle. It sounds like a triangle, but it's
Tetrad.
Tetrad. The Tetrad.
Tetrad.
I went on a big rabbit hole with this when you first taught me about it, just around all of what phones, having smartphones, and like interviewed people and did a bunch of research online. And one of the things that came up was for the not retrieval, which is the one that reverses back into, and it was the apron strings that kids now don't leave home emotionally or even practically. Like one of my friends will say her kids are in the grocery store and she gets calls like, which kind of applesauce did we buy, or what did you say, the whatever. And it occurred to me that the most basic way that our smartphones, that you could describe what our smartphones have done, is they really keep us from becoming independent, like breaking into some new phases of maturity. So it's almost like that. I didn't have to break through this suffering or this idea or solving, making the recipe the wrong way, and then realizing I actually like that better, or, whatever.
Don't take away my kid's phone at school because I have to be in contact with it.
Right. But, and that is actually keeping the parent from maturing to the next phase of development. So, I think, what we have constantly gone back to in our relationships with technology and in the ways they shape us and the ways we're shaping them is, if you can develop as a person and choose your big leap is the next thing you're integrating with technology, it can be a thing that is benefiting you. And if you're paying enough attention to your mental and your emotional health and your relationships, and you can see when it's starting to affect them, right? Like an easy thing right now is like every emotional issue you could go to AI and just process through, like you have, the most understanding therapist ever, and not process through that stuff with the people you're actually in relationship with. And you can see, if you're aware of those things and you know what health feels like, as you start bumping into them, then you can make the adjustments, which is life.
Yeah, there's a term in media theory called technological determinism. And it's an interesting study to go look at it, because technological determinism says that we don't really have much of a choice. It's kind of a evolutionary topic that we don't have much of a choice, that these technologies we create will shape and control our environments, our cultures, and in a way that's true. But I don't buy technological determinism. I do believe that we have choices and we can make a difference, and we can push, and we can make small adjustments in our own life and for the good of others, to say, yes, the train's out of the station, but we can push toward more healthy ways of using it.
Yeah.
That it can benefit human flourishing. It can give us time back. It can check our work. We can use it with our kids in school to show them, hey, write a reel essay, now upload it to ChatGPT and ask it to give you some thoughts about it. Ask it to grade it.
Yeah.
Ask it to say, how could you make it better? Those are things that I think we're going to have to learn how to adapt.
Yes, so much. And, what I saw with my kids who, your youngest just graduated from high school. So I'm curious how it changed from when my kids graduated to yours. But they were so overloaded with work that what you're talking about would require about 30 to 40% of what they were required to actually go through the process of learning instead of just churning stuff out, which if you've demanded churning, then you're going to be like, we're just trying to get this as fast as possible. It doesn't matter. Right. Okay. We obviously could talk forever, and we have, not today, but over the course of our knowing each other for this many years. But people can find you on the Human Voice.
Yeah, humanvoicemedia.com. It's just a landing page that talks about getting in touch with me, what I offer, how I can help from branding and marketing strategies. I still do a lot of that, but also AI literacy and advising for companies and organizations.
Yeah, so maybe the most needed thing right now. I wish you could do it for schools. Because I do think the critical thinking involved in AI is going to be so much more fun than just navigating the internet with your school.
I do
or
a
worried
lot
about
of
cheating.
AI literacy for teachers, and
I love that.
And I've got 3 or 4 of them this summer around the country. And the thing that teachers most of all, my wife's a teacher, as you know, and the thing that they struggle with most is they got into teaching maybe a little bit too romantically. It's like, I'm going to just sit with these beautiful faces of these kids, and I'm going to spend time with them. I'm going to mold them. I'm going to teach them and prepare them for the future. And what more noble profession is there? But what they find quickly is it's about lesson plans. It's about meeting standards. It's about submitting grades. It's just true. On and on and on. And I find that they're really hungry for tools like this and
so they
shift
can teach
this
again.
Culture to really be able to be creative, to have a room full of sophisticated interns, help them mold these lesson plans, do personalized lessons teaching for every single student in their classroom, and do it at scale and do it fast.
That's incredible.
Those are things that I'm really excited about.
That's really incredible. And you have so much quality, good writing on Substack.
Yes. Yeah, you can just look me up on Substack. It's called Silicon and Soul. It's not just about AI, but it's a big portion of it.
Yeah, it's great. Well, thank you for honoring
me.
us with your presence and for helping guide us into the future.
Good. Great
Thanks,
to be
Bob.
here. Talk to you soon.